Hey, buddy. Hey. Hi. You want to say hi to the people? This is your first time on camera. Hello, friends, and welcome to Figure Study, where we appreciate the form in Transformers. It is still Memorial Day weekend. I am still operating on 3 hours of sleep, so we are still trucking along with relatively basic-ish figures to look at, because I'm so tired. And today that pursuit of basicness brings us to Robots in Disguise, Combiner Force, Soundwave. Always had kind of mixed feelings about the RID line, the recent RID line. Okay, I've had mixed feelings about the other one too, but that's beside the point. Recent RID, it's been kind of like hit or miss with me. A lot of the stuff has been a little too simple, and a lot of it hasn't really looked that great. Soundwave here, I think, strikes a really nice balance between simple and awesome. So, getting right into it, he's an armored car. He's not a tape deck anymore. He's not even homaging the tape deck, really. I mean, yeah, he's got the thing up front there, but that's really about it. There's nothing on this vehicle mode that screams tape deck, which I'm fine with. I said as much when I was talking about Transformers Prime Soundwave that I think it's fine giving him new alt modes. I mean, Megatron's had several. Prime has had how many now? Like 6 million? You know? Let Soundwave be something else for, okay, more than once, but still. It doesn't hurt for Soundwave to be something that's not a tape deck, and in this case, I think it's pretty darn cool. This is just a really nice, beefy-looking armored vehicle, and it looks formidable. This is like something that you might see out of Mad Max if Mad Max took place in the future. It's very harsh and angular, and looks like it could probably run through several walls without slowing down. And I like it. I mean, I don't know that it necessarily fits Soundwave as a character, but I don't care. I just think it looks cool. And with this thing, I just have it placed here because I think it looks cool, like off to the side, kind of as a mortar. But it can go on the other side, or it can get pegged into the top, and that I feel like looks ridiculous. It just sits too high for the truck, so that's why I keep it over there. I do wish that it could kind of tuck in here somehow, but it really just doesn't. So it's going to be staying in here for the rest of the alt mode portion of the video. Yeah, very solid looking. My main gripe about this is going to be the same gripe I have with the robot mode, and that is that the colors are a bit inconsistent. Namely that the blues are just different. This blue is lighter, this blue is darker, this blue is shiny, this blue is shiny. It's just kind of like they're similar-ish in tone, but not exactly. I mean, at the very least, it's semi-uniform. Like, the entire front section of the car is that lighter blue, and then it gets darker up around the actual, like, seating area, or what would be the seating area. A little bit dark around the rear wheel wells, and yeah. But it is a good-looking vehicle. It's got a nice boxy shape, and like I said, I like the harsh angles that are coming off of it, and this kind of almost semi-swept back look going on in the front here with how these wheel wells kind of angle back and have these little points coming off of them. I feel like if you looked at it just like this, it could almost look like something out of a Batman movie. That'd be a weird crossover. Color-wise, again, it's just a mixture of blues with some gray and some red thrown into the mix. And the placement's fine. I mean, the vehicle is predominantly blue, but it's okay for what it is. I do think the red and black wheels are a nice touch, just to bring a little bit of color variation into the alt mode. Not a fan of this, though. I've never been a fan of this. I really wish they just would use like regular faction logos instead of these stupid QR circles. And they even mold it into the... that's something that's always kind of bugged me about RID, but it is what it is. Still, solid alt mode. You've got hands sticking out the back, which is a little bit but when you're looking at it from the side, you don't really notice their hands, and you definitely don't notice the hands from front angles. The back's even relatively tidy too, with the way the tops of his feet just kind of form this trunk section. It's altogether a pretty tidy little vehicle mode with a big gap in the middle and super duper hollow underneath, but from the angles you'll normally be looking at it from, it looks pretty solid. And for our size comparison, you can see he is just deluxe size. I mean, he looks a little bit chunkier in alt mode than Dreadwind, but I mean, you saw how he looks underneath. It's practically a void under there. So bulky though he may look, he's still roughly about the same size. But then where would we be without a Transformers animated Soundwave comparison? Animated Soundwave looks a little bit bigger despite not being as beefy a vehicle. This is like a little techno Scion thing, and this is like a armored car, but the armored car looks smaller than the Scion, which is a little bit strange. And yeah, looking at them side by side, there are a lot of interesting details with animated Soundwave, like the tape deck homage built into the deco of the vehicle. But still, it's interesting how this Soundwave is sort of a cross between animated Soundwave and Prime Soundwave, which we'll see more in robot mode. You can't see too much of a similarity here, except for the fact that it's like a boxy four-wheeled vehicle, but still, it's an interesting hybridization of designs. But I think that's about all I can say about his alt mode. I mean, he's an angular box with wheels. A good-looking angular box with wheels, but an angular box with wheels nonetheless. There's a little bit of purple for the headlights, though. That's cool. I mean, it probably should be a lighter color, like maybe this yellow or something close to it, because then it'll stand out more, but still, they painted the headlights. That's cool. Anyway, yeah, that is it for Soundwave's alt mode, so let's get to that robot mode. And here we have Robots in Disguise Combiner Force Soundwave in his robot mode. Basic and relatively hollow as that alt mode may have been, this is awesome. Yeah, okay, a bulkier frame may not necessarily fit Soundwave as a character, but I don't care. This looks really cool. So, meh. This is just a really, really cool looking Soundwave. I love the silhouette on this guy. He's cartoonishly buff with the broader chest and the larger arms, but not like so ridiculously exaggerated. He definitely has more of a Soundwave vibe in this mode where he's, predominantly blue robot with a little bit of gray and that little chest window thing that could almost pass for a tape deck in robot mode. Not quite. And of course, he's got his shoulder gun thing. He looks really cool. I do really like the silhouette. I like these added bits kind of coming off of the shoulders there and just how those bits kind of rotate around to just make his shoulders more interesting looking. You get a bit more gray immediately visible in this mode, which also works. I mean, yeah, you see it in the forearms in vehicle mode, but now it's all kind of concentrated right around here where you've got the forearms, the legs, the shins and feet. It all works really nicely. Here, though, what's annoying about this is the plastic colors are closer to being uniform, but then they go and paint weird portions of it. Why is his pelvis this nice metallic blue color and parts of his shins and his shoulder gun and nothing else? I don't understand why they did that. Okay, maybe the paint budget was limited, but if you can't do more of this really nice metallic blue, let me bring him in closer here. If you can't do more of this really nice metallic blue elsewhere on the figure, then why not just not paint that and instead do a different kind of paint job elsewhere in a few more smaller spots so that it kind of pulls everything together a bit more? I don't know why they limited the paint scheme like that. It just doesn't quite make sense to me. Also, I can't help looking at this and thinking just how cool it would be if that metallic blue was in a lot more places on this figure. But again, aside from the paint being weirdly applied in a few places, this is a really, really slick looking robot mode. I am very much into it, regardless of whether or not it fits Soundwave as a character. And they're totally using Prime Soundwave's head design, or at least homaging it with this one. And ever since watching Prime, I've actually really liked their take on Soundwave. The fact that he's just like this faceless, expressionless, really creepy, lurking guy who doesn't really talk. I mean, I don't know if he actually talks in RID, but still, that face is really effectively creepy. And there's a fair bit of detail here. Actually, there's kind of more detail molded into the head than anywhere else in the figure collectively, because you've got a lot of nice little molded lines in there, as well as these vents along the side, and it's really good. And I like that they actually painted a little bit of gray on the sides there. I feel like if it was all blue with that red in the middle there, it would look a little too plain. And this way, I think it's a nice balance of colors, or at least a nicer balance of colors. And now that the head is out of the way, just looking at some of the other details up close, you can see the shoulder cannon does have a little bit of stuff molded in there, like the sort of telltale Gatling gun looking design on the inside there. Astrid, please. Astrid. And I do like the design of the chest. I mean, it's not a tape deck, but it does sort of evoke that, and the shape of the chest is really cool. I like how it kind of comes down and goes in a little bit right here. So it just adds a nice shape to that chest when it could have just been like a blank slab, pretty much. Nice little visual interest. It also sort of mirrors a little bit of what's going on at the bottom of this yellow border for his chest window. And moving on down, he's got semi-clawed fingers, and I think that's great too. This creepy-looking face with these creepy-looking sort of clawed fingers, that is a nice combination. And of course, he has his semi-ornate-looking shins and the toes that, not bad. I actually kind of like the gap in the middle there. It kind of separates the shape out a little bit. It lends itself more to the semi-pointy nature of the rest of his frame. So yeah, Combiner Force Soundwave is pretty darn cool looking. Although, actually, before we do the size comparisons, I do want to talk about the one thing that bugs the ever-loving crap out of me about this figure. And that is the way his neck is handled. It sits on this panel here that doesn't like to stay up very well, and your inclination is to kind of have it more down flush, but if you do that, then his chin is like sitting inside of his chest. So you kind of have to push it up and lean his head back, in which case you kind of get his chin over his chest line, but then he can't really look up that much anymore unless you like start using that hinge. And I wish this piece came up a little bit more, or that his head was on a little bit longer of a stalk for his neck, because as is, it's just a little bit annoying how sometimes it looks like his head is sinking into his chest. And I feel like a simple fix could have prevented that, but whatever. I'm not the toy designer here. It's the one thing that does kind of bug me about this. Like the paint stuff, that's me nitpicking, but the chin being lost inside of his chest, that does legitimately bug me. But anyway, size-wise, you can see he's a little bit shorter than an average deluxe, but only a little bit. Not too much of a difference there. And despite being ultimately lighter and, I guess, thinner in terms of plastic, he still looks beefier than Dreadwind there. It's a really cool design. I'm going to keep saying that. It is a really cool design. Now, with animated Soundwave, you can see a bit more of a similarity here, just in terms of frame. This Soundwave is definitely much more bulky than a more typical Soundwave. I mean, it's a completely different aesthetic, don't get me wrong, but this is why I feel like animated Soundwave had a hand in Combiner Force Soundwave's design, because that's a pretty similar frame, with like the bulky chest and the bigger shoulders, the arms that hang down to the knees. I mean, even the chests are similar, where you've got the dark void surrounded by gold. Then again, that's kind of a Soundwave thing, but still, there is a decent amount of similarity between these two, just in terms of the frame of their body. And then we get to the other parent, I guess you could say, of Combiner Force Soundwave, and that is Transformers Prime Soundwave. And here, again, there are certain bits to this design that you can kind of see carried over here. Like, he's got these long, spindly, creepy, claw-like fingers, and he's got these spindly, creepy, claw-like hands. Actually, while we're doing that, there you can totally see the similarities in the head design. Take these little collar bits off the bottom there, and you've got a very, very near identical head. The shape is slightly different, but the design is so so clearly inspired by Prime Soundwave. And this is still a great Soundwave. I know some people are still bothered by the fact that he's not a tape deck in Prime, but I mean, come on. You gotta admit, that is a creepy Soundwave. And I do believe that is going to do it. That has been Transformers Robots in Disguise Combiner Force Soundwave. This is a figure I have been wanting to talk about for a while, but just other stuff came along, and I was kind of like, I don't really feel like talking about RID, but I finally did it. I finally got to talk a little bit about this guy, and he is very cool. I'm just really into this design, and maybe I'd hate it if I watched the show. Maybe they did really dumb things with Soundwave's character, but I don't care. On its virtues as a toy, just standalone toy, not taking into account TV show stuff or anything like that, this is a very, very cool looking robot. Oh, also I wanted to say I like how the wheels tuck back into the calves and really clean up his silhouette a lot. That's also something that I wish a lot more figures did. But anyway, that has been my look at Transformers Robots in Disguise Combiner Force Soundwave. And that is more than enough of what I think. What do you all think? Because I know I can't be the only one who sees the similarities between this guy and animated Soundwave and Prime Soundwave. Like, I feel like if you merged the two of them together, you would get something very close to this. And is anyone else bothered by that head panel flip-up thing? But regardless, whatever your thoughts on any of these things and anything else you might like to contribute, feel free to comment down below. I do enjoy hearing from you all. And also feel free to like or subscribe. Any of those things would make me a happy Rob. And remember, art is more than meets the eye.